Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Burning Rubber Podcast. I'm Jake Scarborough, joined by my co-host Sal Zavala and our newest member of the team, Tim Olson. How you guys doing today?
Fairly good.
Good.
That's right. That's nice. Well, we've been gone for a bit, but there's been quite a bit to talk about. I say the first one to talk about, GMS coming up to the Cup Series full-time next year. I'm not sure if they got a charter, but they plan on running full-time at least. What's the move in your guys' eyes? How's it for you guys?
Well, I mean, they're obviously doing good in trucks. I don't know exactly how I'd be feeling about a full-time Cup team, especially because I don't think they have a charter. And, I mean, I'm assuming good driver for that would be maybe Zane Smith. But, I don't know. I don't think that that's a great move. Maybe full-time Xfinity again, and then just kind of
Build.
I don't know, just work on your team and just improve everything, then go back up to Cup.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking. I mean, they obviously, if they're able to make a move like that, and especially full time with a non-charter, I'm sure whoever they have lined up has some sort of sponsorship. Zane would be a good one. I've seen people even point at Noah Gragson for a couple races. I don't know if they plan on filling in one full time or like a full time car with part time drivers. It's just going to be interesting to see, especially to just jump back into Cup again like that, or for the first time, and not going back to trying and building your Xfinity program again.
Well, I'd say my opinion on is how you mentioned Noah Gragson being like one of the people they kind of expect to take over that ride. If I'm right, there is that whole partnership between Junior Motorsports and GMS already, like with their development at least. That's why Sam Mayer has some involvement between both teams. But if they're playing this outright, that's going to be kind of the Cup team for Junior Motorsports. That's probably why GMS didn't go for an Xfinity team. Junior's probably helping fund the whole Cup movement. And that honestly could be where Noah Gragson lands, because we look at Hendrick's lineup right now, and where do you really see Noah Gragson going? You know, I don't see Justin Allgaier moving back up to Cup anytime soon. I don't see a way Michael Annett moves up. I mean, and then you have the 8 car, which is part-time. Sam Mayer still needs to develop. And then Josh Berry at least deserves a full-time season in Xfinity by any mean. So, I mean, I look at that. Do I think they're going to be good right off the bat? Probably not. But with the relationship they have with Junior Motorsports and then possibly getting some help from Hendrick, I don't see it being a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, with GMS going up to Cup, and obviously, if Junior Motorsports is funding it, then Noah Gragson obviously would be the guy. Personally, in my opinion, I don't think Gragson is quite ready. Like, let's see, his first season at Junior Motorsports, coming to a championship-winning car, won the last 2 titles in 2019. Didn't even win a race. He was consistent enough, but it wasn't a crazy competitive field. Then you had last year, he got a couple wins, didn't make the Final Four. And this year, obviously, had bad luck, had Homestead in the bag, but then the lap car got in the way.
And David Starr.
Yeah. I'd say he's a good driver, but I don't think he's Cup Series ready.
It's kind of the topic we reached at preseason when everyone didn't know who was going to land in the 48. People were like, oh, it's going to be Gragson. And I think we all said, like, he's not ready yet. And I think that's still the topic now.
Yeah, he still needs some stuff to develop. He's calmed down compared to what he was going around for last season, like this super aggressive driver and getting into it with a bunch of guys on the track, off the track. He's developed a little bit better other than that scruff up with Hemrick earlier this year. But he's getting somewhat more mature. It'd be fun to see him in Cup, but I wouldn't expect anything full time yet.
Yeah. Especially because a lot of people were looking at him as like the next Kyle Busch. Like Kyle Busch obviously ruffled some feathers a while back, and obviously still does. But he does it as he's winning. He's still easily one of the best drivers of this time. So I mean, obviously you can have some cockiness. Noah, he's barely won. And he's in championship winning equipment, but he just hasn't been able to put it together. He hasn't shown too many consistent runs to warrant a full Cup seat.
Well, yeah, I can agree with you guys on that. But moving forward, you have Kaulig announcing that they'll be going full-time in Cup with 2 cars, both with charters. One of them was announced to be full-time with Justin Haley, and one of them was announced part-time AJ Allmendinger, but according to Bob Pockrass, they'd be willing to give up AJ's seat to someone that has the sponsorship to cover the full-time season, allowing them to race full-time. So we could see Kaulig with 2 full-time cars, with 2 full-time drivers running for points next year. I honestly don't know how to feel about it, considering what team would they have partnership with, but at the same time, we see how good they are in Xfinity, how good they've been the past few years. I'm not going to doubt that they're going to be one of the best, or not one of the best, but they're going to be a good midfield team and work their way up to the top like they did in Xfinity.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them. Maybe what I would shoot for with their team be kind of like Trackhouse. Trackhouse has kind of come out. They started off relatively quiet, but they really did start to develop some consistency and some good runs behind Suarez. And I feel like I wouldn't exactly call Haley the exact same caliber as Suarez, but Haley isn't a dud of a driver. He's a young guy that they can definitely build around, and I'd say in a couple years' time, they could be a solid playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, it was bound to happen. I feel like some people were ready for that announcement, whether they had a charter or not. Because I mean, Matt Kaulig and Chris Rice, they've been pretty open about wanting to run Cup eventually. Just wasn't sure when they'd go full time. Because I mean, they've started slowly with the restrictor plate deals and all that stuff. But and I mean, they've done good in that. So if they can build good equipment that can run them up front the way that their super speedway program does, I can see them being at least a last couple spots, maybe 15, 16 playoff contender. But I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see if they can find someone to fill that second car with full-time sponsorship.
Definitely. I mean, if we really look at anyone who would kind of have that sponsorship to really bring that in, that if we're looking at people coming up from an Xfinity side of things, who would it be?
Honestly, someone who I would have thought before, obviously, the announcement that was made a couple days ago, I would have thought Harrison Burton would have been maybe solid for that seat, because he does have the full sponsorship, but obviously he's going to the Wood Brothers, bringing Dex with him. I know Zane Smith, he has some backing. So, I mean, he did do good in Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, and he's solidly one of the top maybe 5 or 6 drivers in the Truck Series. And I could see him going up in Cup with the Chevrolet backing, and I don't know. I see that as a solid possibility.
Yeah, Zane Smith probably. I haven't been paying attention that much to, because I know some of the GMS trucks have been having trouble with that. Yeah, that's the only one I can really think of. Right now, I was thinking, now that Chastain and Kurt are kind of in it or out of a ride, Chastain does have history with colleagues, so I mean, if he could put together a full time of sponsorship, I wouldn't be shocked if they were to get Ross the second ride.
See, you're kind of thinking like me. I was gonna say if they don't go for someone building up to Cup already, and they went with someone in Cup, it would definitely be Chastain due to his history with the team. But how you both said Zane Smith, remember who subbed in for Haley in Dover. The only reason I don't think he'd go to the Cup side of things, though, my prediction is, put Chastain in the car for Cup. We already know what he's capable of in Cup. You have that relationship with him already. Then you have the relationship with Zane Smith already. Put Zane in the 11. Send him out full-time Xfinity for your team. Then you can build him from there. Because him with Jeb and AJ, him with Jeb and AJ, that would be a good force to work with, because you've got someone that was in the Cup Series for quite a while, and then you have Jeb, who, was in it part-time, had to run with BK Racing, back in Xfinity, still rebuilding his career. I think it would be good for Zane Smith to kind of build with those two in the Xfinity program when you have Chastain and Haley in the Cup team.
The thing with that is that, just correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Chastain has full-time backing that could help him out.
That is true. I think everyone that sponsored him up to now has been like Chip Ganassi sponsored, like McDonald's, Clover.
Well, I'd say moving on from that, if you guys have nothing else to add on. We had the big news with Trackhouse buying out Chip Ganassi Racing, this meaning that they will have 2 charters next year. They already announced that Suarez will be driving for him next year. So, who do you put in that second full-time spot?
Well, my personal opinion, I would have kept Kurt Busch there. But it's just looking more and more evident that he's probably going to 23XI. Honestly, as of now, I like Trackhouse more as a team than 23XI. Just 23XI, they haven't really put together as great of runs. I don't know if that's just Bubba not performing in the equipment, or if they just have a lot of development that needs to happen inside of the team. But I feel like a better move would be Kurt to Trackhouse, and obviously you wouldn't want to do this, but probably let Chastain walk. He has talent. He could find a ride somewhere relatively easy. It's just, I think the smarter move is just to keep Kurt, because he's riding a high right now.
Kurt. I feel like sometimes people forget how good Kurt can be, and I feel like Atlanta really showed that he can still compete with the best. He can still go out there and perform. And I feel like they just want a bit more experience in Cup than Chastain, who just, this is his first full time, and he had done some part time with like Premium Motorsports or something like that, I think. But yeah, I feel like they just want to keep a championship winning driver like Kurt in there, help them build the program more and push Suarez a little bit more to just kind of give him that to lean on.
See, you mentioned the 23XI part where they announced that they're going to have a second car. And or was it announced or no, they did. So, this is probably going to sound biased by every mean, but without a doubt, I'm staying convinced that Chastain gets the second Colleague seat because knowing Colleague's sponsors already, they'd probably be willing to sponsor Chastain knowing what he's capable of. But wherever you put Kurt, whether you put him in what's assumed to be the 32, to be teammates with Bubba Wallace, or you put him in the second Trackhouse seat, either way, I see either Kurt or DiBenedetto landing in that second Trackhouse seat, and wherever one of them lands, the other's going to go to the other one. That's just my prediction on it. With all that being said, though, I do think it will be Kurt in the second Trackhouse seat solely because of the relationship that Hamlin and DiBenedetto have, where Hamlin's kind of helped out build his career. So I feel like knowing that he's a free agent, he'll go for that over someone that's probably on the closing stages of his career. And sure, you could say, Kurt's able to win races, but at the same time, you do notice he's been around since 2001. So sooner or later, he's going to have to call it quits. But I feel like it would be a good learning experience for Suarez to get him that veteran teammate.
Well, yeah, there is always that experience factor because, yeah, obviously Kurt doesn't have too many years left. He's definitely on the back half of his career, probably the back quarter. But I do think that as far as 2311 goes, I don't see DiBenedetto going there solely because I just don't think that he should be in the Cup Series. And I know that's a hot take, but think about it. Levine, he did great. There's no denying that, especially Bristol. Hamlin passed him late. He had that race won if Newman didn't block. 2020 and 2021 have been relatively quiet. He had a couple standout runs. He had the Vegas races, and then you also have Dega. DiBenedetto has talent, but I don't know if it warrants a Cup ride yet. I'd say kind of do what John Hunter Nemechek did. He kind of got relatively rushed up to Cup. He had a bad season with GMS, or a mediocre season with GMS. That went up to front row, and now he's back in the Truck Series, absolutely dominating. I'd say something like that with DiBenedetto, just for maybe a year, because he's not crazy young either. Just so he can actually win some races and really prove his worth, and then we could see him back up in the Cup Series with more experience and top-tier equipment.
See, and you mentioned that, and how it's been a quiet season for him. I do believe part of that struggle was because of the fact that they recently announced that they had released his current crew chief. Or not his current, but they released his crew chief and replaced him. And ever since that replacement, you had Nashville, where he ran well, then an issue with the car happened. And then you had Loudon, where they tried making that call to stay out, hoping NASCAR would, call the race early due to the daylight issue. And they ended up pitting and still getting, I believe it was 11th. He has that consistency role. I'll relate him to Paul Menard on that. He seems to be the type of guy that can always bring the car home, whether it's a 10th place finish or like a 17th. And that's what a lot of people are going to want, especially a team like Wood Brothers. But then, yeah, you look at 23XI, they're wanting to build that winning car. And, do they think he has what it takes? I believe if you have the good combination between the driver and the crew chief, that they can make that happen. And I feel like that's what's going to help him in these closing stages of the season because he's got that new crew chief. They've been working well together. So maybe he can actually turn some heads before the season's over and land a cup ride.
Yeah, I'd say that. And I'd also say, alright, so Mike Wheeler, isn't he at 2311 with Bubba?
I believe so.
Pretty sure,
Yes.
yeah. And wasn't he also at Levine for 2019 with
Dibby?
DiBenedetto?
I think so.
If that's the case, I'd say obviously Wheeler and Bubba, they're not doing amazing. It depends on if it's just the pairing or just if the car and everything just isn't up with everyone else. But I'd say if DiBenedetto does go to 2311, if Bubba doesn't pick it up near the end of this season, and Dibby does go there, switch him to the 32 or whatever number 2311 picks. Put Mike Wheeler and Dibby back together. Since 2019, they did really good once they caught fire in that Levine seat, which really wasn't all that great. So just put back a pairing that worked, and then maybe we can see what Dibby's made out of.
Yeah. And I will say this, I feel like Bubba gets a little too much hate, and how I feel like this has been a topic we've talked about a lot in just today's episode. But teammate having experience, he has not had a single cup teammate at all. And if I'm wrong about this, did he even have a teammate in Xfinity?
I don't think so. I think whenever he joined Roush, it was a single car team.
I mean, he had Gibbs back in like 2010, but that was just short-lived.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, that was a short time. Then you look at, as of at least the past 5 to 7 years, has he really had a teammate? No, especially since his Cup. Since he joined Cup, he drove for Richard Petty up until the end of last year. Now he's with Hamlin, and sure, you can say, well, Hamlin's his team owner. That should be enough help as is. You can't really rely on that. He can't really just rely on his team owner for all that. So, I mean, it's a weird thing to kind of rule for Bubba, but it's going to be interesting to see how that team progresses.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the hard knock life of just having a startup team. Because I'd say expectations were relatively high because it's a JGR affiliate team, but we were all probably thinking at the level that Furniture Row was affiliated with them. It's like a race-winning car. Definitely didn't turn out to be like that, but it is still a new team, so just obviously time will tell with them. But yeah, it'll probably work out eventually.
Well, this next topic is kind of 3 things all on top of each other. I'd say the best way to put it is they announced Keselowski wasn't returning to Penske for the following season. So that left the door open for who's going to the 2 car. A lot of people thought, DiBenedetto or Cindric. But before the season even started, they announced that Cindric's going to the 21 at the end of this year. So people were like, okay, so Cindric's getting the 21. They're going to put DiBenedetto in the 2. Scenario did not work out that way. They announced that Austin Cindric will be driving the 2 car next year. But then the question was, who's going to take over the 21? Well, Harrison Burton got put into the 21, and then that's why we started talking about the DiBenedetto free agency. And that left the door for, where's Brad Keselowski going? He goes ahead and announces that he's going to be a co-owner and driver for Roush Fenway, and he will be driving the number 6 next year. So much you got to throw together right there, but the craziness before silly seasons even started, you've got 2 Xfinity call-ups, one of them that's a part of a JGR program now going to the 21, and then Keselowski becoming a team owner again, becoming co-owner of RFR and driving, their 6 car, which I'd say was mostly made famous by Mark Martin. Then he had, Trevor Bayne, David Reagan, Ryan Newman all drive it. But I'd say more people remember it for Mark Martin driving it. But the fact is, that's so much all in one, and I honestly don't even know what to make of it.
Yeah, you gotta hold on. We gotta take a deep breath after all that. So, yeah, Keselowski, with him going to Roush, you could tell. I feel like he's always had that craving for being a team owner since BKR shut down in the Truck Series, and I guess that obviously tells why he's now going to be part owner at Roush. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. So with Cindric taking the 2, as soon as the rumors were swirling that Keselowski wasn't returning, it wasn't fully confirmed, but it was implied that Cindric was going to take the 21 until all those rumors. And now Cindric's in the 2. Now with Harrison Burton in the Cup Series now, in the 21, I am very high on Harrison Burton. I think that he's going to be great. There's obviously going to be the growing pains, and also because rookies as of late, have just kind of struggled. Because the Cup car is very different from the Xfinity car. I think it might take a year or 2, but I am very high on Harrison Burton. I think he's going to do really good and bring the Wood brothers back to where they were in 2017, like with Blaney.
Yeah, I was one of the people whenever the rumors on Keselowski started going around. I knew I'd kind of figured they'd put Austin in the 2 car. And I honestly thought they would keep DiBenedetto in the 21, but the whole Harrison Burton thing, I mean, it's stuff that gets talked about a lot. JJR, Toyota, they develop all these young guys, but by the time they're all developed and ready to make that move, you got nowhere to put them. Because, I mean, you still got 4 drivers that have shown that they're not done yet, and that they still have a lot of drive left in them, competing for wins, championships. But yeah, I mean, the Harrison Burton thing, I feel like it'll come back and haunt JGR at some point, because, I mean, he's got talent and everything. But yeah, then the Brad move, something that apparently he's been into, or something that he's wanted to get into. He knew that he'd want to still be a part of the sport and everything. And I mean, I feel like that's going to be good for him. I feel like him and Roush and the team he has over there, they can definitely make something special out of that organization again. And it's going to be fun to watch how all 3 of those moves end up playing out 3-5 years down the road.
Well, ending off with that and considering we've got to start wrapping up, I'd say we got to speed up with this. How about we talk about Silverstone? I'd say both races we have to review are very controversial. Lap 1 incident going into Copse. Verstappen, Hamilton, 51G accident. What's your guys' input on it? I feel like this is gonna stir the pot.
Yeah. They're racers. They're not going to give each other space, but it did kind of piss me off how Hamilton didn't Obviously, he asked if he was okay, but that's the most half-assed thing he could have done. And he didn't really sound like he was feeling any sort of guilt. Because, like, obviously it's not all Hamilton's fault, but it's not all Max's fault. And the kind of pettiness that Hamilton has, I definitely did lose some respect for him just because his lack of caring. Because that is a very hard crash.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think the penalty was enough. But yeah, kind of what Tim said. The whole guy celebrated. I get it's his home Grand Prix and all that. But I mean, you can't go off and celebrate like that after how you won it. Because I mean, I feel like if Max doesn't wreck there or anything, I feel like he comes out on top. But yeah, just hope Max is okay, and it's gonna be fun to watch them keep competing the rest of the season.
My input on it is basically, you can rule it as racing. I feel like Verstappen could have left a bit more room, but the way Hamilton drove it in the corner, he's going to miss the racing line, and no matter Verstappen's there or not, Hamilton is going to have to drive through that lane Verstappen's in, just from the way he took it. I mean, you'd say, people can say Hamilton's been around long enough, he should know that types of moves like that aren't going to work. You can't say that because whether you're at the top of your game or you're not, you're going to make mistakes. And sure, it wasn't a good one. It completely changed the factor within the championship, constructors and drivers-wise. And you got to give Hamilton credit. He had a huge comeback after that incident. He was able to come back from a 10-second penalty and pass Leclerc in the closing laps. Sure, it's something to celebrate, but at the same time, it was overdone with the fact that, we saw a crash that probably 10 years ago could have killed someone. But thankfully for the safety features we have now, it didn't. And, Verstappen's out of the hospital already. But you can't do things like that. And that's the controversial point of it. This is the fact that people say you just can't make moves like that.
Yeah. I could understand the celebration somehow. Just like Sal said, it is his home race. And also, after that lap 1 incident, and this is the final thing I gotta say about it, he put on a absolute hell of a drive. Like, he came back from the 10-second penalty and just straight ran down Leclerc. And if Leclerc he was really good on the medium tires, but once he switched to the hards, it just lost a lot more pace, and Hamilton just seemed to be getting faster and faster with them. So, you could obviously see why you'd celebrate that one, because he did make a very good comeback.
Well, last topic would be Loudon review, where probably 2 of the shittiest calls made by NASCAR in recent time took place. Also controversial. One of them would be not throwing the caution for it literally raining on the track, causing 3 of the JGR cars to wreck, Kyle Busch being one of them while he was leading. And, if it's a road course, whatever, let them run. But you're at an oval where you say, we're not going to race in the rain. This is a flatter track. And all that rain settling. And 3 cars wreck, resulting in what ended up being the caution. But the leader wrecked, No one wants to lose a race like that. And sure, it was early on. But it was bad damage by the factor of NASCAR's decision. And then another decision which caused controversy was calling it was 10 laps early due to the fact that the track doesn't have lights and they were running out of daylight, and a bunch of people are upset that another Joe Gibbs driver, Christopher Bell, kind of lost the win by that because he lost 10 laps to kind of make up a gap to Almirola, who eventually won the race. But I'd say they were both terrible calls. They should have called the caution for the rain in the first place. The second drivers were reporting about it. And I'd say they should have let them finish the 10 laps because I don't think 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes, that probably would have rounded out to about 5 to 7 minutes. I don't think 5 to 7 minutes would have made a huge difference with the daylight like they were making it sound. But what do you guys think?
I do agree with the rain call. Or I agree that it was absolute bullshit. That they just didn't call it. Because they just want to put on a show for the fans. But they really... NASCAR as of recent has not really cared about the drivers and what they think. Like, as far as this, they obviously kind of turned a blind eye to it. They didn't really care. And I feel like they're just starting to go kind of willy-nilly, especially with the 10 to go thing. That just did seem kind of sudden. I don't know how dark it was at the track because the commentators were talking about how the cameras, it did make it look a lot brighter than it actually was. So you never really know about that, but as you're saying, 5 to 7 minutes, how much could it really have done?
Yeah, I think I had to listen to it, and I was watching like a delayed Twitch stream at work. But from what Twitter was making it sound like, Jeff Gluck and Bob Pockrass, NASCAR didn't have an exact like, oh, if we have this many to go by this time, we're going to go ahead and shorten it. They just said, I believe after like stage 2 or middle of stage 3, they were just like, if we feel that it's too dark, we're just going to call 10 to go. I think what they ended up taking off wasn't even 10 laps. I think it was like 7, if I remember correctly. And yeah, 7 laps wasn't gonna, but it was gonna make a difference, and they could have finished. Because I mean, even after the post race celebration and all that, social media, it still looked like it was barely getting like dark enough to where they wouldn't have been able to see. And yeah, like 5 minutes, running 5 minutes more wasn't gonna make a difference. For as far as the rain thing, they should have just held off. They knew the storm was coming. It kind of reminded me of Texas last year in October. Same deal happened. It started raining. They were still running. And then eventually Harvick ended up getting the short end of the stick there because he, I believe, like scrubbed the wall or something before they finally called it. And not ended his day, but I think he ran like lower 20s the rest of the day whenever they finally got it going. I mean, if you know it's going to rain, just hold off, wait a bit, and then see what you can do.
Well, do you have anything else to add on to that, Tim?
No, I'd say he summed it up quite nicely.
Well, I'd say that wraps us up for the week. I'd assume we're not going to get too much news between any series this weekend, so the chances of us actually recording next week are probably slim to none solely because I doubt we'll have any news. But in that case, I think that wraps it up. Do you guys think so?
Yeah.
I'd say so.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you all for tuning in. It's been a while since we've recorded. Plan to being back on this regularly every week. But thank you two for helping out today. So that about sums it up. So I'm Jake Scarborough, joined by my co-hosts Sal Zavala, Tim Olson, and we'll see you guys next episode.